really lovely to be here today. The journey of the birth of this center and this collaboration and everything that goes with it has been something that I've been following for quite long, and it's really, as Jukka said this morning, touching to see this taking form and life at the moment. Satu has asked for a personal mini introduction in the beginning, and I just want to say, so I started working for the City of Helsinki as Chief Design Officer literally 2 days before the pandemic hit, so have been diving into this new role predominantly from the space of my own home and getting to know where things are. But I think what we see today, and also how the city has connected to it and might connect to it in the future, has been something that has been an interest of mine for long. So I was working with Arkinfo Finland as a director for 4 years, which is one of the partners of this initiative, and various things. Helsinki Design Week, where we are today, where I was for 2 years, and really trying to foster certain education and learning activities in that platform as well. And like Satu said, we know from years back with Satu, from a context more of looking at cities in general and how we might understand our built environments, designed environments, is something personally for me as well, really important. Like has been mentioned today, I believe that design and architecture are something that truly affect all of us, and the more we can explore those things through different generations and age groups is something that will benefit our everyday lives and the future of this planet nonetheless. So in the brief thing today, I'll give a little bit of snippets about, now from the point of view of the City of Helsinki as an organization, how we work with design in general, what that has meant in the past years, and an aspect of sort of learning also within the city, and then how that connects to different stakeholders and groups and communities within the city. And then I'll give a couple of examples of sort of places and practices that are happening now and where we might be going with them in the future. So pretty much, of course, as we all know, and as is the base of the two museums here today, there is a long history and legacy, and I won't go into that today. That is clear that is the solid base that we stand on and reflect on and can mirror and have a dialogue with that, which is, of course, very important in the future as well. But as a city, Helsinki started sort of engaging more strategically with all things design and architecture about 10 years ago, when Helsinki was World Design Capital, and that has been a kickstart in a way for the role that I have today as well. So there have been, that was a point where different groups and communities and sectors inside the city and then connecting outside started sort of looking at, okay, what can we do with these kind of methods? How can we engage with different communities better? That meant also connecting to different international networks, such as the UNESCO City of Design Network, and Hello to Dundee, you are part of that network as well. So nice to have dialogues in that context as well. But literally from there, through different projects, through setting up certain sort of design-based labs inside the city, and these matters entering on the highest level within the Helsinki City Strategy as well, which is the second round running in the current strategy at the moment. Has been the journey. My role, there's been one pilot edition of it earlier, and this is the second time Helsinki's been one of the first cities in the world to have such a role, which is in a way cross-sector role, of which the aim is to connect different parts of the city and different work done in different parts of the city to amplify what we can do with design and architecture. So that, and why we do this is, well, it starts, of course, from how the city works, what the services are, what it is, how it can be functioning in the best possible way. But very much, of course, it's about the communities, the residents, the different individuals and groups who the city engages with, how we can work better to understand what we want to do together and how we might do that together. And in the case of Helsinki, there's been also an increasing aim to sort of use design methods to look at different societal challenges and how we might look at those and solve them better, so sort of creative problem solving. I think for me what the key thing is, And there's lots of work to be done, of course, but the key thing is that this sort of attitude penetrates the whole city. So like you see the image here, this is a Dinner Under the Sky of Helsinki event, the kind of event that are not taking place at the moment, but perhaps in the future, which literally cuts across what the city does. This is the aim. So it cuts across the city and its spaces, and it cuts across our lives in a way as residents of Helsinki or communities visiting Helsinki. Running from the kind of stuff that might happen when we are born. There are things here on the timeline that sort of more directly perhaps connect to today's topic as well. And this for me is the thing that this is something that is present in our lives all the time, and the aim is for the city to further and further understand and use that. Just a couple of things, like actually the city of Helsinki is one of the largest sort of design sector operators in Finland. We, for the past couple of years, have been having a more long-term strategic partnership, for instance, with certain service design companies, in some of the best ones operating in Finland. Something that we're looking at now as well, how to the work that's done with these stakeholders to make it even more long-term, and something that the results can be shared widely across the city and beyond. Then we have, so my role, but also a small team of designers working across the different city sectors, and a network across the city's own workers that we are looking to systematically kind of develop and scale that in the future, and have the kind of skills that are developed here today as well, have them even more embedded in the city as well. And importantly, this is part of all our different divisions. So there's urban environment, culture, leisure, education, social services, and healthcare, and central administration. And there are examples in all of these of stuff that has been done. And we'll look at a couple of them now. And I want to start from the kind of obvious ones, so schools and what might be happening there. Now, as the two museums who are the organizers today will know, Helsinki has been sort of a partner and championing architecture and design education in schools for quite a few years now already, and which is something to cherish and be proud of. There are several schools and then individual teachers who are really actively involved there. To name a few, Arabia Elementary School or Kruunuhaka Upper Elementary School, who have developed different sort of design tracks, or how creative problem solving is connected to design learning throughout different curriculum grades. We've been along the years partner in different sort of projects developing education materials for teachers to use, or other sort of projects such as the thing that we are discussing today. That's great. There's more to be done still. So the next stage over the coming years is to develop even sort of more ingrained citywide long-term activities that I think there's a good base for doing that. There were really great reasons mentioned already in Leena's and Hanna's and Arja-Liisa's introductions, but indeed, why this is important, why we want to do with this. There might be, of course, certain sectors of, for instance, school kids that want to develop this into a profession, but predominantly it's about creative problem solving, working together, working as teams, collaboration skills, reading those environments, starting from the school buildings and the immediate environments, kind of the city itself as a learning environment, and how we might use that to a maximum, and how that understanding develops who we are as people, how we understand who we are, where we come from, and where we sort of root ourselves and understand where others might be from and what layers there are in there. On the other hand, of course, understanding of materials, natural resources, how that connects to where our planet is going. And active citizenship was mentioned. This is extremely important. So the more we understand how what is designed and built around us will give us tools and motivation to participate in building those joint futures together. So doing it together with people. The city of Helsinki has a kind of a strategic aim of this in general, of how we might create equal opportunities for participation, self-motivated civic activity. And I'll give a couple of examples of this, and I'll start from the school. This is a really recent thing that's going on. So Service Center Helsinki, Palvelukeskus Helsinki, which is a service provider that works together with the city's divisions, looks after, for instance, food. Kids get food at schools during the day. have been looking at that. There are things to be done and create a more holistic kind of path. How do the buildings themselves, the teaching curriculums and how kids end up in schools, and the food they get there, how might that work together better and do it so that it works, so that the more and more kids eat at school and it happens in a way that is sustainable in general. Running from spatial design, atmosphere, is it nice where people eat? What do they eat? How is that, how are kids kind of views taken into consideration? Importantly, how is food waste managed? How might they customize what they're doing? How is this communicated about in schools, and how feedback is taken into consideration? So there's pilots undergoing as we speak in Meilahti and Kankareen puisto, where these kind of things are made very visible. How much food was wasted yesterday in this school? How might we diminish this? How might we increase what we eat and enjoy it all together? A very good example, I think, of how different sectors of the city are aiming to work together and together with the school children. In this case, this is upper elementary school. So they are looking at, there is a problem with the file here. We'll skip that one, but there's literally that how these different elements go into the layout and the building itself, in the case that they kind of use the resources you have and maximize them. Another thing that's really important is the Oma study participatory budgeting, and hand in hand that Helsinki has a long-standing relationship with so-called Ruuti budget, which is a section of sort of youth projects and how kids decide about that. But I think this is something that they're really seeds for learning in this. So the city of Helsinki has done one round, and the second round is about to kick off, about up close to 9 million euros of the budget decided by residents that what happens. And this is sort of divided in different districts of the city, and then there's kind of citywide projects as well. Now this is for 12-year-olds and above can vote. And this might be investments or operational expenses, so pretty much 3 stages. There's an idea development, how that big pool of ideas is taken on board. Different experts in the city work with these ideas. They are voted for and stuff goes into production. And there's, as we speak, 44 projects being executed. And I've been kind of looking at them now in these first weeks in this job, and there's a really large chunk of stuff in there that has to do with our designed and built environment, like a massive part of those projects. Some of them are sort of different public space projects. They're things that relate directly, many of them also, to young people. So, for instance, how we might co-design what kind of equipment is in after-school clubs, how in the summertime we might foster cross-generation activities and summer jobs in different neighborhoods, or for instance in playgrounds, that in the future the plants that are there, how can we make sure they are edible plants rather than something else. And for me this is like, there's huge potential in this. What first round is in production. We're taking on board learnings from this, how we might make it even better in the future, who did we reach, who did we not reach, and so forth. But there's like that seed of active citizenship and the kind of hunger for understanding design and architecture in there. And thirdly, I think I cannot not mention one of my favorite topics, the libraries in Finland, but we also need beacons and like landmark spaces for how and where these things happen. And the library systems and library network in Helsinki is one key example. From close to 2 years now, when the Central Library Audit by Ala Architects was opened, and I think this is important for international audiences online, I want to bring this in example. Here it is, the building on a symbolically prime spot in the center of Helsinki, facing the Parliament building, like a beacon of kind of materializing our Library Act, our 100 years of library history and so forth. But this kind of many things come together in this building. Of course, it's an amazing showcase of new Finnish architecture. But at the same time, how it was built, it was a huge pilot for public participation. There's been thousands of citizens involved in, from naming it to looking at the designs, how it came about in the first place, how the teams inside the library work. So there's this kind of mentality of design learning runs throughout the project and how it came about. the image in the back is from the kids department, and other thing that's been very important in libraries, in Finnish library architecture history throughout, from the very early ones, and something that's to be cherished. And I think this is very important also for the reason that such landmark buildings, in this case, has not sucked up, taken away from the local neighborhood libraries. On the contrary, last year, close to 50,000 new library cards issued, more than ever before, and an increase in visitor numbers throughout the library network, so not just in this landmark building. So this landmark building gave light to those activities. And for me, that kind of means that we need those places and platforms and activities and policies in the future as well. There's currently been, in Finland, a national policy for architecture is being drafted by the Ministry of Culture and Education and Ministry of Environment, together with various stakeholders. There's space in there to take these things further. We are working on a similar policy at the City of Helsinki now as well. But we need those places like the platforms that we are the first event of the Architecture and Design Learning Centre today. So yes, there's a very active discussion and negotiations going on now how to make this new Architecture and Design Museum a reality. Similarly to what Audi has done, this is intended to be like a beacon that brings all this knowledge and doing and learning together and takes it kind of to the next stage. And although we are living in times where it's very challenging how to do events, we are at Helsinki Design Week today, which is happening despite the pandemic, in ways that are safe and sort of are distributed across the network of the city. And I think really importantly, and encourage whoever can this weekend, the main exhibition takes place at the Olympic Stadium that has just opened after restoration. The restoration has just a week ago, been nominated as one of the contenders for the Architecture Finlandia Prize this year by K2S Architects. So this facility is open this coming weekend, and center stage there are children. So there's a really lovely children's kind of suunnistus orientation event taking place on the main lawn. There are things going on that our future generations can be center stage, and we want to make sure that happens in the future as well. So thank you. Looking forward to working with you in the future on these matters.
We as well, Hanna, you mentioned so many aspects that are crucial for our project as well. But I'm sure there are many ideas. So please, could you hand out the mic, Hanna?
Thank you for a very fine presentation. I saw a very quick image that there was also a suggestion for participatory living, for disabled people and elderly people.
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about new ideas of that kind of?
Yeah, these so there have been literally tens of different sort of design-led projects done in the city of Helsinki over the past few years. There have been things done particularly for kind of cross-generational living pilots. That particular one, I don't know all the details of it, so it's something that's happened already in the past 2 years. But I think the point kind of in there's, for instance, work done on how to support, for instance, the elderly in moving more in the city. There's a strategic program of liikkumisohjelma as well, which I think is important that we look at design and architecture, how this connects to these different strategic initiatives, for instance, tackling segregation or tackling loneliness in the youth or tackling things like this. And what I think is absolutely crucial in the years to come is that we are able even better to collect those learnings and scale them up and share them in this city, but also with cities elsewhere in Finland and around the world. And that's kind of something that I want to help do in the years to come. But so there have been many sort of projects like this one and pilot examples, and it's our task to take those learnings on board for I mean, we're living in a situation now where urban life itself is in a certain kind of crisis, and we have, of course, there's kind of the short term of, okay, how do we enable safe and yet somehow uplifting urban life in how we dine outside, how we move from one place to another, how do we sit in this room today? But the huge, really big questions, of course, when it really comes to perhaps design and architecture learning is how are we doing the long-term stuff? How are our cities in the future? In how are we building them? How do we live in general? So, and how do we support the different needs, such as the one you mentioned? So that is like, it's not a small task by any means, but I think that in this moment, like, we really have the responsibility as design and architecture sectors to be actively part of that discussion.
Yes, I hope that you will have a pilot project where design and architecture are really, on the top level for elderly people, and there is joy and hope and also recognition, because European Social Charter 23, it guarantees that everybody has human rights to, enjoy the life to the rest of their life. And it also concerns culture sectors, but we don't talk about it. And I think I have heard from Arja-Liisa today and from you how beautiful ideas you have of lifelong learning. So I will congratulate you just before and after what you have been doing.
We will do our best. A very good point. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for your talk. I was really it was really nice to see what is happening right now in Helsinki. Like, I have been kind of following quite many steps that what is, and I think the direction looks really good. And I was just, one thing that came in my mind, that when we are now having a center for learning, architecture and design, how can also a city visit this learning center and learn? Because I think there's this new standard also published in Finland, the Design for All standard. And I work for Espoo City Library Services. Okay. And I think it's also it's really crucial that we as individuals, human beings, we learn and the communities learn, but also how can we guide the cities learn together, how we can use design as a better, like a tool for a better world. Thank you.
Yeah, this is crucial, and as you said, Helsinki has done quite a bit in the past years in this, but there's still more to be done, and this is and of course this is not an easy task. Helsinki is the largest employer in the country, close to 40,000 people, so it's a lot, but there's like my kind of the first weeks and this time that I've now spent, unfortunately predominantly remotely, getting to know the field, but there's a really strong will I find across the city to everybody from their kind of position, whether it's at sort of top management or somewhere down in the lines, running from really grassroots, to make this city the best possible place for everyone. And that's the kind of mentality that and in a way to open up to learning from each other and learning together with our communities. I mean, this is why we exist. So and I'm hopeful and confident that we can do that, and want to kind of be part of sort of fostering those discussions with other cities as well. So let's talk. Yeah.
And there's a question or comment on Twitter. Nimka, go ahead.
So EduJam UK has a question for you, Hanna.
Okay.
How do you think the city policies help to embed design and these approaches with the citizen approach? How do they make an impact? And then hello from Dundee.
Hello, Dundee. Right. I must add a little note. I'm half British myself, so nice to have this discussion with you. Yes, policies are really important in this, and you kind of look at, for instance, the city of Helsinki has several policies at the moment that sort of connect to design. And of course, the leading thing is the city strategy. We're entering 2021 will be the year that there will be a new strategy coming along that we don't, of course, know yet what it is, but that is the sort of level where in the past, so the one that we have at the moment and the previous one, design has been there. And from that sort of the chart of where we are now, and I think importantly, we're coming up to kind of 10 years from that kickstart from the World Design Capital year, and it's a good point for us to really reflect where we are and what impact has happened and what hasn't happened and where we need to go. So yes, these policies are important. It's equally important to kind of cross-check where stuff connects. So such as Helsinki has a very ambitious carbon neutral program, Hiilineutraali Helsinki 2035, where there are several things in there that connect directly to design and architecture field, or things like I mentioned the mobility program or such things. So our task is to look at these different programs and how they talk to each other. If I'm allowed a little advertisement, actually Friday next week, there's another event, Nordic City Making Week, happening in Helsinki, and I'm moderating a discussion exactly about this topic. Then so the program will be on nordiccitymaking.fi, so we're talking about these policies and visions. Then there's, of course, the level of how national policies interact with local or regional policies. So at the moment, so 2 ministries and a number of stakeholders are drafting a national architecture policy for Finland. Finland was one of the first countries in the world to have such a policy. From 1998, it's been in the waiting for a while to have the updated one. And in my previous role at Arkinfo Finland, I was working very closely with the ministries to look at how we might kickstart this program work, why is it relevant today and how to do it. And I find that these kind of programs are very relevant, particularly for the reason of bringing different stakeholders together to look at some stuff and to find commitment and ownership of certain issues to take those things forward. Learning and education matters will be one big thing in this program. I mean, that's safe to say already at the moment. And of course, then many of the things sort of nationally outlined in these programs are then implemented in different ways across cities and regions. And there's, for instance, today Lahti was mentioned. Lahti is working on an architectural program at the moment. New one, there's things, Jyväskylä has had one for several years. There's several additions coming along already. Many of the things connect to learning in there as well. And we are working on one in Helsinki at the moment as well. So hopefully that will also be one place to sort of, in a way, strengthen a dialogue nationally and locally, and then see what we can do, for instance, in places such as schools. Hopefully that answered some of it, yeah.
I hope that answers to Dundee as well. Thank you, Hanna. There was a question from Pamela's. Go ahead.
I just noticed another question here on Twitter from Radka in Dundee. It said, what is the role of universities in engagement with the city and with citizens? How are they engaging and reaching out?
Universities are a big part, of course, the network of the larger kind of design and architecture ecosystem in Helsinki, and how we have, of course, spaces like Aalto University here in Espoo, but in the kind of metropolitan region. And then in terms of, I'm sure Kasmir will maybe say something about that from Tampere. So there's 3 architecture schools nationally in Finland, and they are very important sort of stakeholder there. For instance, the World Design Capital year, the universities were a big part of it as well. I will probably actually turn the question also to the new Architecture and Design Learning Centre, how you intend to work with universities in the future. I'm actually interested in hearing about that as well. So perhaps Leena or Hanna can say something about that as well. But yes, absolutely, they are really important partners in this work. And I think, for instance, you look at issues such as the climate crisis. Just a few days ago, I was at another Design Week event to do with, for instance, how the city of Helsinki is working with these matters, and we do work quite closely with universities actually already, for instance, on those matters and what research is coming out and how we might look at stuff together in the future. So that's definitely something to cherish.
Maybe I can answer to your question about the university. So at the moment, we are already closely working together with Aalto University, and we have students also working with us from that university. And the plan is also when we go to Tampere next, that we are also contacting Tampere University, and so it's. We are going to work together with the university. Hanna wants to say something.
Also, one key point is teacher training. So there is already so much going on in Helsinki University or Aalto or other universities. So that's also a great possibility to collaborate and also do things together.
And here there's a thing called the Urban Academy that indeed is a kind of network between the cities of the metropolitan region and the universities who Kaupunki Akatemia in Finnish, who regularly host various events. There's one next Monday, for instance, a morning coffee, which is looking at local service places, ostaries, and that in identity building. So,
Thank you,
Thank
Hanna,
you.
for being us today, this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invite, and we will keep talking.
Exactly. So.